Katharine Hepburn, whose name would one day become synonymous with artistic daring and unwavering individuality, was born on May 12, 1907 in Hartford, Connecticut. She entered the world in a home unlike most of her era. Intellectually fierce, socially progressive, and unafraid of challenging convention. Her father, Dr. Thomas Hepburn, was a highly respected urologist and an outspoken advocate for public health, particularly in raising awareness about venereal disease. Her mother, Catherine Martha H. Houghton Hepburn, was a suffragist of national stature. A woman who fought openly and fearlessly for gender equality. Raised within this environment of activism and intellectual rigor, young Hepburn absorbed the values of independence and self-determination almost by osmosis. She was encouraged to question authority, to think sharply, and to live boldly, traits that would later define not only her career, but her entire persona. After completing her studies at Bryn Mawr College in 1928 with a degree in history and philosophy, Hepburn set her sights on the stage. Her early attempts in the theater world were met with both promise and friction. She was fired repeatedly, accused of being too outspoken, too unconventional, too unwilling to bend. Yet none of this discouraged her. Her sharp features, strikingly athletic movements, and unmistakable voice made her stand out in an industry saturated with soft-spoken, traditionally feminine starlets. Soon, the very qualities that once made producers wary became her unique strengths. Her breakthrough arrived in 1932 with a bill of divorcement in which she starred opposite John Barrymore. Critics and audiences alike were immediately captivated. Her natural intensity, crisp delivery, and undeniable screen presence launched her into Hollywood acclaim. Over the following years, Hepburn continued to shine in high-profile roles. Morning Glory, 1933, which earned her her first Academy Award, the beloved adaptation of Little Women, 1933, and the acclaimed Alice Adams, 1935. Yet, fame did not follow a straight path. By the late 1930s, after several box office disappointments, she found herself branded box office poison, a label that might have ended a lesser career. But Katharine Hepburn was not a woman who surrendered to circumstance. Instead of stepping back, she seized control of her own narrative. In a bold and unprecedented move, she personally acquired the film rights to the hit play The Philadelphia Story. She then negotiated its sale to MGM with one non-negotiable condition. She would star in the leading role. It was a daring gamble, one that would ultimately resurrect her career and cement her legacy as one of Hollywood's most formidable forces. The film became a sweeping success and marked a defining turning point in Katharine Hepburn's career, restoring her reputation as a powerful box office presence. It also showcased her brilliance in sophisticated comedy, particularly her signature portrayals of sharp-witted, independent women who refused to conform to traditional gender expectations. A character type she would revisit repeatedly with unmatched mastery. Hepburn's filmography stands as a testament to her extraordinary range and fearless artistic instincts. She dazzled in zany screwball comedies such as Bringing Up Baby 1938 and The Philadelphia Story 1940. Yet she was equally commanding in intense dramas like The African Queen 1951, Suddenly Last Summer, 1959, and Long Day's Journey into Night 1962. Her long-running collaboration with Spencer Tracy, both on screen and off, produced 9 unforgettable films and one of the most iconic yet complicated love stories in Hollywood. Though Tracy remained married and never divorced, their bond spanned 26 years, ending only with his death in 1967. In the latter half of her career, Hepburn reached even greater heights. She won 3 additional Oscars for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? 1967, The Lion in Winter 1968, and On Golden Pond, 1981. These performances reaffirmed her enduring power, magnetism, and deepening emotional resonance as she aged. By the time she made her final screen appearance in Love Affair, 1994, Hepburn had achieved an undisputed status as a living legend. Katharine Hepburn's only marriage was to Lello Ogden Smith, a wealthy Philadelphia businessman whose privileged upbringing contrasted sharply with a fiercely independent, unconventional persona that would later define her. They met while she was attending Bryn Mawr College, a prestigious women's institution known for its rigorous academic ideals and progressive spirit. At that time, Hepburn was still shaping her identity as both a woman and an artist, and Lello, cultured, refined, and steady, offered the kind of traditional security that may have briefly appealed to her. Their courtship moved quickly, and the two married on December 12, 1928. Hepburn was just 21, still uncertain about her future, while the 29-year-old Lello was already established in elite East Coast social circles. Yet almost immediately after the wedding, Hepburn began to chafe under the expectations of conventional married life. The societal pressures placed upon a wife of upper-class standing clashed deeply with her need for autonomy. One of the clearest signs of her discomfort was her insistence that Lello legally reverse his name to S. Ogden Lello simply so she would not become known as Kate Smith, a name she considered hopelessly dull and devoid of personality. This seemingly small detail reveals much about Hepburn's fiercely independent nature and her lifelong refusal to conform to prescribed identities. This unusual yet telling request, having her husband legally reverse his own name, perfectly captured Katharine Hepburn's lifelong insistence on standing apart from the ordinary. Even within the confines of marriage, she demanded the freedom to define herself on her own terms. But despite the early optimism surrounding their union, Hepburn never fully embraced the role of a traditional wife. Her relentless ambition and growing devotion to the craft of acting began to overshadow any hope for domestic stability. For Hepburn, acting was far more than a career. It was a consuming passion, a vocation that dominated her thoughts and priorities. The everyday expectations of married life felt trivial compared to the thrill and challenge of the stage and screen. Her bold, fiery temperament also frequently clashed with Ledlow Smith's gentle, reserved disposition, though he was courteous and well-mannered. Hepburn found his quiet nature uninspiring. Her impulsiveness and emotional intensity made their personalities fundamentally incompatible. Adding further strain was Hepburn's deepening relationship with her agent, Leland Hayward, one of the most powerful figures in show business at the time. Their romance overlapped with the final years of her marriage, reflecting just how emotionally distant she had grown from Smith. Hayward himself married offered Hepburn both romantic excitement and crucial professional support during a fragile stage in her early career. It was a relationship fueled equally by affection and ambition. The decisive break came in 1932 when Hepburn moved to Hollywood. A choice that symbolized her total commitment to her craft and an unmistakable departure from the conventional life expected of a society wife. The distance between her and Smith, both literal and emotional, grew too large to bridge. On April 30, 1934, she filed for divorce in Yucatan, Mexico, a destination known for granting fast, discreet dissolutions. The marriage was officially terminated on May 8, 1934. Despite the painful unraveling of their relationship and her own admission of infidelity, Hepburn never forgot the stability Smith had given her during her early struggles. In her autobiography, she candidly confessed that she had taken advantage of his kindness, bluntly calling herself a terrible pig for exploiting the depth of his feelings. Yet, even after the divorce, their bond proved remarkably resilient. They remained friends for decades, maintaining contact until Smith's death in 1979, a testament to the unusual but enduring connection they shared. Meanwhile, Hepburn's affair with Leland Hayward grew more intense once she settled in California to pursue film work full-time. Although both were still married when their relationship began, it quickly evolved into something serious. Hayward eventually divorced his wife and proposed to Hepburn, but she refused him. Her rejection revealed the core of her personal philosophy, a fierce devotion to independence and a deep skepticism toward marriage after her first experience. For Hepburn, freedom, creative, emotional, and personal, always came first. Hepburn later summed up her choice with her trademark bluntness. "I like the idea of being my own single self. Those few words revealed everything. Her refusal to be confined, her determination to remain autonomous, and her lifelong belief that no romance, no matter how passionate, should dictate her identity. Her affair with Hayward lasted 4 turbulent years filled with emotional highs and the ever-present clash between her devotion to her craft and the demands of love. Then in 1936, while touring with the stage production of Jane Eyre, Hepburn entered into one of the most talked-about relationships of her life with the enigmatic billionaire Howard Hughes. An aviation pioneer, inventor, and film mogul, Hughes possessed a mixture of brilliance, eccentricity, and brooding mystery that both captivated and exasperated Hepburn. Introduced a year earlier by their mutual friend Cary Grant, the two quickly became a fixture in headlines. Hughes was smitten with Hepburn and according to many accounts sought to marry her. Hollywood gossip columns buzzed endlessly about a rumored engagement. But just as she had with Hayward, Hepburn resisted marriage. Especially at a moment when her career felt unstable, was the last thing on her mind. By the mid-1930s, her star power had dimmed. Though critics often admired her work, audiences found her too intellectual, too unconventional, sometimes even too aloof. Her film choices, bold, nuanced, and occasionally defiant of studio expectations, didn't help her popularity with mainstream viewers. The turning point came in 1938. When independent theater owners branded her box office poison, a devastating label that threatened to end her Hollywood future. Facing the harshest period of her professional life, Hepburn stepped back from the film industry to reassess her direction. Her energy was now channeled entirely into resurrecting her career, leaving neither space nor emotional bandwidth for marriage or even for maintaining her relationship with Hughes. Inevitably, the romance dissolved. Their split wasn't dramatic nor fueled by animosity. Instead, it was a quiet drifting apart, shaped by clashing temperaments and the widening divide between Hughes's growing eccentricities and Hepburn's singular focus on artistic survival. They remained on polite, cordial terms, but they were never meant for permanence. Still, the relationship left a mark. It was yet another example of Hepburn choosing ambition over domesticity. Self-determination over romantic compromise. In the luminous world of Hollywood's golden era, few stars commanded attention the way Katharine Hepburn did. Armed with a fierce wit, an uncompromising spirit, and a record-breaking 4 Academy Awards for Best Actress, she forged a career and a life defined by independence. No actress before or since has embodied such a remarkable blend of strength, vulnerability, intellect, and defiance. Yet behind that unshakable confidence and commanding on-screen authority was a woman whose private life remained carefully sealed, especially where matters of the heart were concerned. Though her long complicated bond with Spencer Tracy became one of Hollywood's most enduring legends, many biographers insist that the relationships she never spoke about, the ones hidden from the public, were far more revealing. These were the romances whispered about only in the shadows. Rumored affairs with women she trusted, desired, and ultimately grew to resent. For decades, speculation circled around Hepburn's alleged intimacy with several prominent actresses. She never publicly confirmed these stories, and no definitive proof has ever surfaced. Still, Hollywood historians claim that Hepburn once kept a private list. 7 women she had quietly been involved with and with whom things had ended in disappointment, betrayal, or unresolved pain. Each woman was a star in her own right and each shared with Hepburn a world where ambition, secrecy, and vulnerability collided behind studio walls. 1. Tula Bankhead, flamboyant, provocative, and legendary for her smoky voice and uninhibited personality. Tula Bankhead lived with a daring freedom few others possessed. According to certain biographers, sparks flew between her and Hepburn at an exclusive Hollywood gathering in the late 1930s. Bankhead, openly bisexual among insiders, quickly pulled Hepburn into her orbit with her irreverent humor and oversized theatricality. What followed was said to be a fiery, short-lived romance, marked by intensity, but doomed by clashing temperaments. Bankhead's chaos and emotional extremity overwhelmed Hepburn's more controlled nature. When it ended, Hepburn supposedly summed up the experience in one sharp line. "An emotional hurricane I should never have walked into." 2. Barbara Stanwyck celebrated for her grit and gravitas. Barbara Stanwyck embodied strength both on and off the screen. Rumors of an affair between her and Hepburn surfaced throughout the 1940s, whispered in studio corridors and hinted at in coded gossip columns meant only for those who knew how to read between the lines. Their alleged relationship was brief but powerful, forming during a period of personal turmoil for both actresses. According to later accounts, the emotional impact was far deeper than anyone realized. Hepburn is said to have described Stanwyck with chilling honesty as a reflection of myself I couldn't bear to keep staring at. The remark suggested a connection too intense, too revealing, one she ultimately stepped away from. 3. Greta Garbo. The mysterious Swedish legend Greta Garbo, famous for declaring, "I want to be alone," was said to have allowed Hepburn closer than most. During the late 1930s, the two were reportedly seen slipping away to quiet retreats in upstate New York, and Garbo is rumored to have welcomed Hepburn into her highly guarded Manhattan apartment on several occasions. According to speculative biographies, their bond was built on a kind of quiet fire, intense yet veiled, intimate yet distant. But Garbo's emotional walls proved impenetrable. Hepburn, as rumor has it, eventually admitted her frustration. She never let anyone truly know her, not even me. 4. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford, fierce, glamorous, and relentlessly ambitious, was said to share an equally complicated connection with Hepburn. What began as rivalry allegedly tipped into a brief, tension-filled affair. Their personalities clashed from the start. Hepburn reportedly found Crawford's obsession with celebrity overwhelming, while Crawford accused Hepburn of withholding her feelings. According to Hollywood Whispers, Hepburn later summed it up dryly. She played strong women, but she couldn't handle one in real life. 5. Relationships shaped her public persona. Hepburn reportedly grew resentful toward Arthur in the end, frustrated by the director's refusal to acknowledge anything beyond friendship in public. The distance it created stayed with her. As Hepburn is said to have reflected later, "She taught me how to command a scene, but never how to claim a heart." In her later years, Katharine Hepburn adopted an almost serene philosophical view of death, one that surprised many who admired her strength and self-determination. During an interview in her 80s, she spoke with striking calm about her own mortality, remarking, "I have no fear of death. Must be wonderful like a long sleep." This gentle acceptance reflected the same fierce independence that defined both her public image and her private convictions. Admirers had long praised Hepburn for her intellect, her talent, and her unyielding individuality. Even when contemplating the end of life, she approached it with the same clarity and self-possession that shaped her entire career. But time eventually began to weaken the legendary actress. Not long after her last screen role in the 1994 television film Love Affair, her health entered a slow and unmistakable decline. In March 1993, she was hospitalized for exhaustion, a seemingly simple diagnosis that often signals deeper frailty in someone of advanced age. Hepburn, who had stayed active and independent well into her 80s, was facing one of the first undeniable signs that her once indomitable vitality was fading. Still, she handled her condition with dignity, keeping the details private and downplaying the seriousness of her health issues. Winter 1996 brought a more dangerous setback, a serious bout of pneumonia. For someone elderly, it was a potentially fatal illness. The infection left her significantly weakened, eroding the physical resilience that had supported her through decades of demanding roles. Pneumonia can leave lasting damage, especially in older patients, and Hepburn was no exception. Her recovery was slow, and she retreated further from public life, remaining close to family within the familiar surroundings of her Connecticut home. By 1997, the decline had become dramatically pronounced. Reports described her as severely frail, speaking only occasionally, eating very little, and gradually withdrawing from her environment. Those closest to her feared the end was near. Yet, even as her strength ebbed away, Hepburn showed a muted but unmistakable determination. She clung to life longer than many expected, sustained by the same quiet resolve that had carried her through personal turmoil, professional battles, and decades in the unforgiving world of Hollywood and her final years. Hepburn began to exhibit signs of cognitive decline. Many believed she was experiencing early symptoms of dementia, a condition that slowly erodes memory, communication skills, and the ability to reason. For a woman who had built her identity on sharp wit, quick thinking, and unmistakable eloquence, the gradual fading of her mental clarity was a quiet but painful loss. Still, those closest to her insisted that her essence remained intact. Beneath the frailty, she was unmistakably Katharine Hepburn. Dignified, strong-willed, and determined to face life's end with the same independence that had defined her from the beginning. By 2000, she had almost completely stepped out of public life. Her niece described her simply as a private person, a truth that had become increasingly evident over the years. The once electric screen presence who dazzled audiences with intelligence and fire now lived in peaceful seclusion at her beloved Fenwick home in Connecticut. Her world had grown small, but it was a world filled with affection, friends and family visiting regularly, ensuring she was never alone. In July 2001, her already fragile health faltered again. She was hospitalized after suffering another bout of pneumonia compounded by a urinary tract infection. The combination further depleted her strength. And although she returned home afterward, it was evident that her body was steadily giving way to age and accumulating illness. Despite this, Hepburn remained unwavering in her resolve. She declined aggressive treatments and invasive procedures, opting instead to preserve her comfort and dignity. The final phase of her life began in May 2003 when doctors discovered an aggressive tumor in her neck. At 96 years old, her body weakened. Her energy diminished. She and her family agreed that surgery or medical intervention would offer little benefit. Palliative care became the chosen path, allowing her to spend her remaining days in peace. Hepburn spent her last weeks in the haven she cherished most. Her longtime home overlooking the serene waters of Long Island Sound. On June 29, 2003, she passed away quietly at age 96. The official cause listed as cardiac arrest. She died surrounded not by crowds or cameras, but by the comfort of home, a fitting end for a woman who had always lived life on her own uncompromising terms, boldly, fearlessly, and with resolute authenticity. True to her nature, Hepburn had made her wishes clear long before her death. There was to be no public memorial. She never cared for showy gestures or the trappings of fame. And even in death, she maintained control over how she would be remembered. She was laid to rest in Cedar Hill Cemetery in Hartford, Connecticut, close to the place where her remarkable life first began. Her grave is modest, quiet, and unassuming. Yet, it stands as a powerful testament to a woman whose courage, intellect, and independence reshaped American cinema and inspired generations. Mercedes D'Aosta, playwright and poet Mercedes D'Aosta, stands out as the only woman on this list who lived openly in same-sex relationships. Her affairs with Marina Dietrich and Greta Garbo were widely speculated on, and some accounts suggest that she pursued Hepburn with the same boldness. Though nothing was ever confirmed by Hepburn, diary fragments and letters hint at a short-lived involvement. Hepburn may have pulled away out of fear. The Aosta's reputation for loose discretion was dangerous in that era. As she allegedly confided, she was a beautiful writer, but not someone I could trust with my silence. 6. Judy Holliday. Bright, effervescent, and razor-smart, Judy Holliday seems like an unlikely figure in Hepburn's rumored romantic history. Their connection reportedly grew at Columbia Pictures, beginning with mutual respect and deepening into something more personal. Holliday, burdened by Hollywood expectations and fears of professional fallout, ultimately backed away. According to biographers, Hepburn felt wounded by her retreat and later said she chose the stage over the truth. "I can't blame her, but I couldn't forgive it. 7. Dorothy Arsner. Although not an actress, Dorothy Arsner, the only female director working in the studio system during the 1930s and 40s, was a trailblazer and a discreet figure in Hollywood's queer community. She worked with several actresses of Hepburn's generation and served as mentor, confidant, and occasionally rumored romantic interest. While the details remain entirely speculative, some film historians believe Arsner may have been one of Hepburn's earliest emotional attachments, long before her better known.